Ayo, welcome back to the ultimate YouTube channel, the Rosalie Elliott Show. We're all about music, psychology, and lots more. It's perfect for you.
She's like singing out of my soul. Sometimes we get lost in our own little world, but it's all so much bigger than we realize.
Are you ready to continue this rush ride? I am. So, we're listening through, reviewing, analyzing the full Moving Pictures album. And I started with Tom Sawyer. And now it is time to listen to Red Barchetta. I don't know what to expect, but let me pull up the lyrics so I can follow. And hopefully I'm saying it right, because I know y'all come after me in the comments section. For real, when I don't say names right. So, Red Barchetta. The Red Barchetta tells the story of a futuristic time where certain vehicles are prohibited by the motor law. The narrator's uncle managed to preserve one of these illegal vehicles. He secretly kept it at his country home for 50-odd years without detection. A song about a car and so much more. Okay, well, I guess that's what we're listening to then. Good. Are you ready for this ride? I've already got a few Rush videos out, so check those out. And let's enjoy this ride. Let's see how mind-blown we're going to be this time. Can I follow along? Are my brain cells going to explode at the time signatures in this one? How deep do the lyrics go? How is it going to affect me psychologically? What do you think? Comment below, subscribe, and here we go. Interesting, this song is called Red Barchetta, and several of these people are wearing red. The band members are wearing red, I guess, in the album cover.
No one knows about. He says it used to be a farm before the motor law. And on Sundays I knew the ice and hop the turbine freight. Too far outside the wire where my white-haired uncle waits.
Man, you guys. Listen, Neil Peart. I hope I'm finally saying it right. We've already established he's a beast. The time signatures, I just keep saying it, and I don't want to overdo it. But one of you, rightfully so, mentioned that I don't think Alex Lifeson, am I saying his name right, is getting enough attention. The guitar was beautifully carrying it here. And I want to emphasize that because I know my ears and my responses have been mainly leaning towards Geddy Lee's crazy vocals, the bass today. That stood out to me today. His voice always just very distinct and unique, the texture and timbre in his voice. Neil Peart, I mean, just we keep saying that. But I do, based on, you guys commenting on that a bit, I want to emphasize Alex's work here because he's the electric guitar player, right? He is skilled. And the two things that stood out to me was that red thread throughout, those riffs that were carrying the entire track that really were just like the skeleton of this, but also that solo earlier. Ooh, I didn't want to pause and say much because I didn't want to interrupt during a solo or miss a spot or interrupt us in a spot that, is dearly beloved by you guys. But that was, they're good. What is very unique here, the melody is lingering in my ear. Dung, 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 dung. Different chords, of course, an octave, but that chord progression, that hook is ringing in my ear. I like how it faded out in the end. And the lyrics are interesting because, especially now knowing that it's about that car and this story, if you will, I'm trying to figure out what is the message behind it. So it says my uncle has a country place no one knows about. He says it used to be a farm before the motor law. And as I said in the beginning, it's about this idea about this motor law, vehicles not being allowed. And the uncle in this story of the song having one of those cars, though, I guess the Red Barchetta. On Sundays, I elude the eyes and hop the turban freight to far outside the wire where my white-haired uncle waits. Very poetic, very storytelling, like lots of storytelling. Jump to the ground as the turbo slows to cross the borderline. Run like the wind as excitement shivers up and down my spine. I feel like Rush really loves good, not only songwriting, but good literature, right? The first song being called Tom Sawyer, and that nod to those books. Here, a story within itself, and I don't know if this is based on a real book, another story, another book, forgive me of my ignorance if it is, but this too is like a story, right? This white-haired uncle, and it paints this picture of this time where there's motor laws and there's all these restrictions, and he has to, it has to be out in some hidden place in the country, and he hops the turbine freight outside the wire, okay? It sounds very sci-fi-ish, like there's this city with wire and walls and weird freights you have to use to travel because these vehicles are not allowed, and it sounds very much like this movie. Jump to the ground as the turbo slows to cross the borderline. Okay, again, wires, borderline. It paints this picture of restrictions and law, right, being limited. Run like the wind as excitement shivers up and down my spine. Down in his barn, my uncle preserved for me an old machine for 50-odd years to keep it as new as been his dearest dream. Keep something new, right? So I think men or women, anyone who has a love for classic cars can perhaps relate to this picture of having kept something for decades, years and years and years, preserving it, taking care of it, with the dream of maybe one day, right, driving it again, but also passing it on perhaps to your offspring or your grandchildren or nieces and nephews. I strip away the old debris that hides a shining car, a brilliant red Barchetta from a better vanished time. I fire up the willing engine, responding with a roar. Okay, beautifully just painting a picture of that engine cranking. Tires spitting gravel. I commit my weekly crime. Okay, this is his weekly crime, his weekly vice. Not only literally a crime because it's forbidden. There's the vehicle motor rules and laws, but also a weekly crime, perhaps his vice, his weekly little vice that he does. But this picture it's painting of a willing engine, this engine that longs to be driven, this engine that's ready to go, responding with a roar, a little alliteration here. That brilliant red Barchetta, right? This beautiful car. Wind in my hair, shifting and drifting. Oh, right, that stick shift, shifting the gears, mechanical music, adrenaline surge. Gosh, these guys are good with lyrics. Well-weathered leather. Oh, beautiful rhyme here. Hot metal and oil. The scented country air, sunlight on chrome. The blur of the landscape, every nerve aware. Every part of his existence is just alert and aware. Suddenly ahead of me, across the mountainside, a gleaming alloy air car. Man, so sci-fi. This is like a movie. Shoots toward me, 2 lanes wide. I spin around with shrieking tires. As I was listening to this, I didn't comprehend the story or fully grasp the lyrics. Couldn't even hear all of it. My focus was the musical composition. It's hard with Rush not to just be consumed by that. I spin around with shrieking tires to run the deadly race. Go screaming through the valley as another joins the chase, right? Now there's 2 of those alloy air cars. So sci-fi, right? The alloy air police, right? The people behind the wall are found him. Drive like the wind, straining the limits of machine and man, right? Machine and man. This again an alliteration, but also beyond just painting a picture of what's happening in this movie, I'm going to say, this sound movie, of those limits that the car and man is experiencing. It's perhaps double entendres here, reflection on life, right? The limitations we have, the limitations our machines have. Laughing out loud with fear and hope, that duality here. I've got a desperate plan at the 1-lane bridge. Oh, snap. I leave the giants stranded at the riverside. Race back to the farm to dream with my uncle at the fireside. Oh, snap. 1-lane bridge. And that's interesting because 1 lane to me makes me think there's only space for 1 car, 1 way. This is not a 2-way street. It's a 1-lane street. And I suppose that these alloy air cars can't go any further. When they reach the riverside, they're stranded at the riverside. These giants can't cross. Maybe for political reasons or jurisdictional reasons, or maybe literally the machine can't go past the water, right? They're alloy, what were they? Alloy air cars. So they maybe can only make it as far as either it's an alloy air car, I suppose, an actual vehicle made of alloy and fueled by air that drives on the road and it can't, cross the river or cross that 1 lane. Or they're like some type of, I imagine just some type of sci-fi aircraft because it said air car. But either way, very sci-fi-ish, very advanced. And it's deep. I think I understand a little bit why the reviews were saying it's about this car and this story, but it's more than that. And perhaps the message here is painting this picture of someone who's rebelling against modern day changes that would have us missing out on the beautiful things of life. Not in the sense of, hey, you're missing out if you're not committing a crime, but in the sense of not all these laws and restrictions and these wires that are set up are good. Not all modern change is for our benefit, right? You got the borderline and the wires, the turbine freight, and you have these alloy air cars. It all sounds so advanced, right? But not all of these modern day changes are good. A lot of times advancements and developments and these things that are being created, while they may make us think that they're creating freedom, they make us think we can go further and higher, are actually restricting us because now there's more control, right? The more you have the government involved, the more the government's involved. And so you have all these technological advancements that are creating, however, fear, that are creating wires and limitations, and now slowing down people or keeping people from pursuing their dreams to the point where people are now having to hide in old farms and countrysides. And he's racing back to the farm to dream with my uncle at the fireside. Perhaps also here painting the picture of this race in life towards what we want. That beautiful feeling where every nerve in your body is aware, every nerve is activated. I think that's what life is about, right? Not that it's all just about the highs and those moments of adrenaline. Life is also about the mundane. There's beauty in the mundane. There's beauty in getting a good night's rest. Even if you wanted to stay up all night and party, our bodies are wired that way, need rest. There's beauty in a meal, even the simplest of meals when you're starving. There's beauty in the ice cold glass of water, right? Because you're thirsty, you're dehydrating. It's not just about the fanciest glass of wine and the most extravagant meal. The simple things in life, moments that are in between the holidays and in between the next best thing, are what makes life. But there's also something to be said about the things that we're passionate about that make us feel alive. Those moments where we feel like every nerve is aware. And I love how they worded that. It's not just about the adrenaline and excitement and a dopamine fix. It's about being aware, about having something in life you're passionate about. That's how I'm interpreting this. Having something you're willing to fight for, you're willing to race for, laughing out loud with fear and hope, fully embracing life with that duality that is very much part of life. The fear, because you are running away from someone that's chasing you. You are committing a crime. You are doing something that's frowned upon. You are going against the grain, but also hope because there's excitement, because that 1-lane bridge is in sight, because there is hope that he's going to make it back to the countryside, racing back, leaving the giant stranded, now to dream with his uncle. Back to, which also I think in the beginning it spoke of this dream the uncle had. So the uncle has his dream. He's passing this passion on to his nephew, and nephew now is going, I'm going to go back to the farm to dream with my uncle by the fireside. Maybe also here a contrast between the alloy cars of the city and these wires, in contrast with the country and the fireside, that nature versus concrete jungle picture, the things of old compared to the modern advancements. Perhaps nowadays, this song being already decades old, perhaps nowadays a reflection on what really matters compared to social media and the media and all this pressure we experience and the rules and regulations of what we're supposed to say and not say and the polarization on the media. A song relevant as ever that's maybe perhaps telling us, hey, what makes your nerves aware? What is one thing in your life where every nerve in your body is aware, where you are excited, where you feel fear and hope simultaneously, where you are willing to fight? What are you willing to fight for? And what are some of the things that really matter in life beyond the laws and restrictions, beyond the advancements of alloy cars and turbine machines? What are you willing to fight for? And are you fully aware and alert for this journey? What's your Red Barchetta? What are you willing to travel with in this life, metaphorically speaking, right? What is that thing you're going to keep safe, that you are going to dust off? Sometimes also, even when it comes to age and our existential fears as we get older, as we try to figure out who we are and what makes life, what is going to make life valuable enough and meaningful enough that when it's time to die, we don't have any regrets, or we find peace in knowing we lived life to the fullest, right? What makes that? And sometimes I think we too need that. We need to be that old Red Barchetta where the dust, the old debris is stripped away. Get off that old dust, the old habits, the lies that we've believed all our life, the things that we have gotten content or comfortable, complacent with. Rub off that debris, right? That old debris that hides away that shining car. Maybe that message here too of, hey, you are that Red Barchetta. Wipe off the debris, the old lies that you've believed, the feeling of you're too far gone, your life's over. Just live your day to day, work your 9 to 5, go through the motions, and behind that debris, though, behind that hiddenness is a shining car. There's something beautiful inside of you that's waiting to break out. A brilliant Red Barchetta from a better vanished time, right? You are not too far gone. You're not dead yet. You're not old news. And I think this is a powerful song, even as we're listening to this decades later, now in 2024, right? A new generation exploring and experiencing Rush. Maybe for you guys to who've been here and listened to this, and this is not new for you. You've lived this. How does it affect you now, all these years later? What does that mean to you? And how can we get that back? Those vanished times, those times that feel like they were too far gone. Because I think that too ties into our existential fears, right? When young people don't appreciate what we loved, and it's like, man, I don't want to die and fade. I feel when people dismiss the old stuff and they dismiss the elderly and the oldies, I think sometimes that makes people angry and defensive because maybe they feel like they're fading, they're being dismissed. And vice versa too, right? When older people go, you young ones know nothing, you are so ignorant and stupid. The new generation going, hey, I want to exist and be seen and be valuable. Don't dismiss me. You're old news, right? Like this battle between generations, because we're all terrified of death and we're all wanting to make our mark in the life. And by terrified of death, I don't mean literally, not everyone is scared of death, but we have existential fears. And so perhaps this a message also of saying, fire it up. There's a willing engine inside of you, responding with a roar, hitting that gravel. Very, very different ways to take this. This is way deeper than I expected. What are your thoughts on this song? What does this song mean to you? And are you ready for the next one? We're going to keep listening to Rush Moving Pictures. I will see you on the next ride. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe.